So, what do you love about being a clinical psychologist?
Well, that's a great question. I think my job as a clinical psychologist is probably different than people who are spending all of their time in practice. So, as an academic psychologist, my time is really split between doing a lot of research activities. I also do a variety of teaching. And then currently, I actually don't do clinical practice myself, but I supervise the training of graduate students. And so I think what I like most about my job is the flexibility to engage in a variety of these different types of activities. And my heart and soul is really in the research and trying to think about how to improve outcomes for people who've experienced trauma and who have post-traumatic stress. And then also getting opportunities to work with students who are as excited as I am about that kind of work is really, really enjoyable.
Yeah. So, what does, since you aren't really providing therapy, what does an average workday or week look like for you?
So I spend, I would say, a lot of my week actually is spent in meetings, various meetings related to students, or I teach. So this semester I teach graduate students. I also oftentimes am teaching undergraduates as well. And I also am the co-director for a research and training clinic at UK. And so a good chunk of my activities in the week are spent reviewing therapy sessions that are being conducted by our trainee therapists and providing feedback to them in clinical supervision about ways that they can improve their practice. And so my week actually looks quite different depending on the day, but it's a wide variety of those types of activities.
Yeah. What is something you wish you knew before becoming a clinical psychologist?
Hmm. Um, I think I wish I knew how varied the careers could look. Um, I think I wasn't really sure what a career as a clinical psychologist meant when I was thinking about this at like the undergraduate stage. And increasingly, as I mentor students, even I'm seeing more and more diverse pathways where like some students, many want to go and do practice, but some want to go to be academics, and others though are joining industry or being involved, like working with pharmaceutical companies, consulting on practice or research related issues. And so I think that I wish I maybe had known that ahead of time, and then also known that like clinical psychology isn't the only path. I think it's been a great path for me. But I see a lot of students now who come in and think like, oh, clinical PhD is the path. When in fact, there are actually many, many paths to mental health research and treatment. And oftentimes like that path is not the right fit for what many students are interested in.
Yeah, definitely. It's completely a trial and error process and figuring out what you want to do. And there is absolutely a wide variety of things that you can do. So, that is completely true. So clinical and counseling psych are share similarities and differences as specialties. How do you see your identity as a clinical psychologist influencing how you were trained and approach your job duties?
Good question. I mean, my sense of the differences in clinical and counseling have shrunk over time. I think that the kinds of emphasis that counseling clinical psychologists might focus on has really broadened. And so I would say it probably varies more training program to training program than it does necessarily across disciplines, has been my sort of 2 cents. But I think my training as a clinical psychologist, I was trained in a sort of traditionalist model that I think focuses a lot on understanding specific types of psychopathology. And so my area of focus is on anxiety disorders and post-traumatic stress disorder. And so really kind of emphasizing a focus in that area, which has been a great fit for me and for my interests. And I think though that um, my sense when talking to counseling psychologists, I don't know if they would agree, but my sense is oftentimes the focus is a bit more holistic, less disorder focused. And I think that that is a great fit for also for a lot of issues that people might present to treatment for. I think it's more like I see my role as like I'm a specialist in this particular area, and so I think there will always be a great role um, for specialty practitioners who provide like a particular type of care. And
Mhm.
at the same time, there's a real need for both generalist practitioners, whether they're clinical or counseling, but also more broadly, like this emphasis on the whole person and thinking about how all the different pieces and aspects of their life fit in. And I think that that has been my general sense of what some of the differences in like the kind of training approaches have looked like.
Yeah. Well, thank you for all that. Do you have any other questions or comments that you want to say before we wrap this up?
Not that I can think of.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for participating in